We start with a point. Hi, it's Rob Branson. Welcome back. Today we're talking about Nassim Haramein. And I've got the blog in here as the background, which we're going to be just kind of scrolling through as I read. But right now I'm going to ask Jason to cut away to show something that we're actually going to be talking about in our next blog, which is a new augmented reality helix, the 10th dimension helix, because we're talking about the shape of that helix today. We've talked in previous blogs about fractals, sacred geometry, water, and its connection to life and inspiration, and how the 0 and the 10, in my way of visualizing the dimensions, are really two complementary ways of looking at the same thing, perceiving the underlying perfectly balanced symmetry state that our universe or any other springs from. One thing I've remarked upon before is that the 0 as a point represents the push towards the infinitely small, and the 10 represents the push towards the infinitely large. But both are part of the same continuum and are represented as such in the graphic created for this project. The 0 and 10 are on a line, and the other dimensions are outside of that line. Within my way of visualizing the dimensions then, the 0 and 10 are of indeterminate size, and the other dimensions represent ways of slicing up infinity to get to more specific subsets of reality, including a universe, such as our own. Now, a number of people have remarked to me that physicist Nassim Haramein has a unified field theory which seems to connect in some interesting ways to the ideas I've been talking about. Now, we are going to be providing some buttons for you to jump to the videos that are up showing some of Nassim's work. I just wanted to say the very first one, if you're really in a hurry, just start listening at about the 7:45 mark, because pretty well everything up to that point is preamble. At 7:45, he begins to talk about there being much more to our reality than what we see around us, and that he, like me, had an intuition about this at the age of 7, which he became fascinated with. And by the end of the first clip, you can see him starting to describe the same way of visualizing spatial dimensions which I talk about in my original animation. And as I've remarked previously in entries like we start with a point within the omniverse, and aren't there really 11 dimensions, this is known as the point line plane postulate. In the following video, you'll see that he says the first and second dimension don't really exist. And then he says, by that logic, the third dimension doesn't exist, since it's made out of things that don't exist. So we'll put a button up to that video as well. To solve this quandary, he goes back to the 0 that we start from, the point of indeterminate size, and posits that the fractal nature of our reality tells us that everything is constructed from points, each point recursively, infinitely embedded within all other points, and therefore all points are connected to each other. He tells us that his theories are now being peer-reviewed at several American universities. He points out that this idea may seem similar to the theory of the Big Bang, which says our universe sprang from a dot the size of Planck's length. But in Nassim's theory, all dots contain the potential for a universe because they are all connected together. In the following video we'll put up a button for, he shows clips from a couple of movies, the opening sequence of Contact and the ending of Men in Black, both of which give us graphic ways of visualizing a universe that is embedded in other universes. I've remarked elsewhere that the universe embedded in a rose in an abandoned parking lot idea from Stephen King's Dark Tower series is another interesting fictional portrayal of this recursive fractal idea. The universe is infinite. How do you fit infinity within a finite space? Fractals. In the above video we just talked about, he shows how this could possibly be imagined through infinite recursion. And if you watch the video, you'll see what I mean. Or check out the following two animations which come from Wikipedia and their article on fractals. The object at the left is known as a Sierpinski triangle, and to the right is a Koch snowflake. If you were to imagine drawing a circle on a piece of paper, then fitting either of these shapes within that circle, you would see a very similar idea to what he's talking about. Although both of these animations only show the first 10 steps or less, in both cases the process we are seeing could be repeated forever. as each new step proceeds down to a smaller scale than the one before. And we'll give you a link now to another of Nassim's videos where he continues this idea. And finally, I'm just going to quote from him. Here's how he sums it up, and I've edited him a bit here. Although I can place an infinite amount of triangles in a circle, I will never exceed the first boundary I made for myself. Never. I just showed you how infinity fits in a so-called finite space, because you can divide to infinity within a circle. What does that mean? Let me give an example for physics. We build faster and faster accelerators that cost billions of dollars to get smaller and smaller. If we were to understand this principle of fractals, we would see very quickly that you can always keep dividing. So we would give up the search for some fundamental particle that's going to end the search. And we would start to understand that what we need to discover is the dynamic of the division, the dynamic of the quantization, rather than continuing to see how much further we can keep going down into infinity. Now, if you've followed Nassim this far, you'll now start to hear him saying things about our connectedness and our interface with reality that very strongly connects to the things I talk about regularly with my project. Here's one thing I want to make absolutely clear though. Nassim is not promoting a worldview that comes from 10 spatial dimensions, but he is promoting a very similar concept to what I portray as being the 10th dimension, an infinite set of all possible states that contain all possible expressions of matter and energy, all enfolded together into an underlying whole, a zero which is full rather than empty, as Gavin Gyorbrand explained so well in Everything Forever. When you read blog entries like The Invariant Set, Imagining the Omniverse Addendum, Google and the Group Mind, Dreaming of Electric Sheep, and Why Do We Need More Than 3 Dimensions, you'll see fractals discussed from various approaches. The thing that we should all be clear about here is that fractals are often defined as having non-integer dimensions. And as you'll see if you read the Wikipedia article on Hausdorff dimensions, that Sierpinski fractal we were looking at here has a dimensionality of approximately 1.585. By the time we're imagining reality coming from 10 dimensions, but when those dimensions can contain any number of fractional dimensions, it really does seem like my description of the 10 dimensions allows for us to include an infinite number of vectors within that set. As Nassim says, this is another way of thinking about how an infinite set could be contained within a so-called finite space. The word multiverse has come to have multiple definitions. When someone uses that word, are they talking about the set of parallel universe outcomes for our own universe, as described by Everett's many worlds interpretation? Or are they talking about the 10 to the power of 500 universes with different initial conditions from our own universe, which are predicted by string theory? Often, the definition of this word multiverse depends upon who you are talking to. Because my way of visualizing the dimensions provides a way to unfold and relate both of these concepts into a hierarchy, I have come to prefer to use the omniverse as the word that combines all of those possible states into one. If you'd like to hear more from Nassim Haramein, please go to the YouTube channel. We'll put the link up here, where all 45 videos that make up the presentation we're looking at here are posted. That's all for this time around. Next time we're going to be looking at what we were talking about at the beginning, that augmented reality thing we've created, showing our 10th dimension helix. Augmented reality 10th dimension music videos is going to be the next entry. My name is Rob Bryanton. Enjoy the journey.